Have you ever wondered what truly defines a person? Not their money, not their job, not their fame, but their character. General Stanley McChrystal, one of the most respected military leaders of our time, argues that character isn't something you're born with. It's something you choose, over and over, in moments both public and private. In his powerful book on character, Choices That Define a Life, McChrystal takes us on a deeply personal journey. Through stories of battlefields, mistakes, family, leadership, and reflection, he uncovers what makes a life of character and why it's the only legacy that really matters. Let's break this down part by part, chapter by chapter. Part 1. Conviction. A time to contemplate. General McChrystal begins with the story of his resignation, an abrupt and humbling end to his decorated military career. But instead of bitterness, this moment becomes a gateway to introspection. Stripped of his uniform and rank, he confronts a haunting truth. Our identity isn't built on accolades or status, but on our convictions, the beliefs we live by. This turning point sparked a journey inward. He reflects on how even in times of chaos or disgrace, we have the power to decide who we are. Character, he writes, is not shaped in comfort, but in crisis. The search for conviction. Convictions are not ready-made. They're discovered through thought, reading, and reflection. McChrystal revisits his early disregard for philosophy, only to realize later that thinkers like Socrates and Descartes offer blueprints for living. He argues that modern society lacks this rigorous self-examination. Instead of simply adopting inherited beliefs, we must question them. What is justice? What is duty? Why do we live the way we do? The search for conviction is the pursuit of an examined life, one that refuses to drift through existence unchallenged. A life of conviction. Conviction, once discovered, is meant to be lived. Through a powerful account of suicide bombings in Jordan by al-Qaeda in Iraq, McChrystal shows how belief, whether virtuous or twisted, can inspire both great heroism and great evil. He reflects on how convictions can be shallow if not tested, and how many beliefs are initially absorbed through institutions, family, or culture. But real conviction is forged when beliefs are tested, doubted, and reaffirmed. A life of conviction means living deliberately, choosing values that reflect who you want to become, and having the courage to stand by them. Faith. Faith is often inherited, but for McChrystal, it's something he's had to redefine. He explores his personal relationship with religion, not from a place of certainty, but curiosity. Raised Episcopalian, educated at West Point with mandatory chapel, and later marrying into a devout Catholic family, McChrystal navigated various expressions of faith. He respects faith's power to uplift and inspire, but he also criticizes blind allegiance. Faith, he argues, should evolve. It should be questioned, stretched, and refined over time. The real danger lies in assuming belief makes us right. For McChrystal, faith is not certainty. It's the courage to believe in what cannot be seen, while continually reevaluating those beliefs. The concept of the faceless other, is one of the most dangerous narratives in modern society. McChrystal dissects how fear and ignorance turn neighbors into enemies. From the January 6 Capitol riots to ancient battles, he shows how leaders and media manipulate our emotions, creating artificial divisions. When we fear them, we lose our ability to empathize. He urges us to ask, who told us to fear them, and why? He highlights how leaders stoke division for power, and how essential it is to challenge those narratives. Character means refusing to let fear define our enemies, and choosing to see others with complexity and humanity. The matter of perspective. Sitting in a mud-walled room with Afghan tribal elders, McChrystal is confronted with a different view of democracy. What seemed fraudulent to an American senator made perfect sense to tribal leaders who had collectively agreed on a candidate. He uses this story to explore how perspective shapes our moral compass. We are not born with fixed beliefs. They're shaped by where we live, who we meet, and what we endure. He stresses the need for humility. Understanding that others see the world differently doesn't weaken our convictions. It strengthens them by forcing us to consider them deeply. Ditching the rearview mirror. Life moves forward, not backward. After his resignation, McChrystal's wife, Annie, helped him see the power of looking ahead. Rather than dwell on failures or regrets, she focused on rebuilding. He contrasts her instinctual forward motion with his own tendency to ruminate. The lesson: progress requires letting go. We can't allow past mistakes to paralyze us. While reflection is vital, obsession with what we can't change steals energy from what we can create. Character means knowing when to reflect and when to move. Granddaughters. In the most tender chapter, McChrystal reflects on his role as a grandfather. His 3 granddaughters live next door, and their innocence, curiosity, and independence provide him with a mirror to examine what truly matters. Unlike his role as a parent or a general, he has no command, just influence. He learns that legacy isn't built through speeches or medals, but through consistency, love, and presence. Through them, he realizes that character is not about who we were in the spotlight. It's who we are in quiet, daily moments. Life in the alley. Community isn't automatic. It's built. In a simple townhouse community in Virginia, McChrystal finds unexpected belonging. Neighbors who were once strangers become confidants, united by shared space and effort. He reflects on the importance of showing up, being present, attending weddings and funerals, and helping in times of need. Character isn't only about grand decisions. It's about the dozens of tiny ones we make to support those around us. Navigating work and life. To McChrystal, work and life are not separate spheres. His military service was his life, and his family lived that life with him. He reflects on the myth of work-life balance, arguing instead for harmony. It's not about dividing yourself into roles. It's about living a life where your values guide you in all contexts. Whether comforting a grieving soldier or spending time with his son, McChrystal shows that character means aligning your professional and personal self into one coherent whole. Gettysburg. At the Gettysburg battlefield, McChrystal finds both inspiration and warning. He's awed by the sacrifice and heroism of the soldiers, but wary of the way war's glory can obscure its horror. He visits Gettysburg often, using it as a reflective space to understand leadership, courage, and national identity. The battlefield teaches that character is not only about bravery. It's about remembering why we fight and refusing to be seduced by the romance of war. Digital leadership. Leading virtually, McChrystal argues, requires a new kind of discipline. Communication without physical presence is harder and demands more intentionality. From military operations to business meetings, he learned the value of video calls, presence, and eye contact, even through a screen. Digital leadership means adapting, being present even when remote, and ensuring that your values and clarity are not lost in translation. Part 2, Discipline. A call to think. Discipline begins not in the body, but in the mind. McChrystal highlights how the ability to think clearly, independently, and deeply is one of the most vital forms of discipline. In a world full of noise, distraction, and instant gratification, thoughtful reflection is rare. He warns that without disciplined thinking, we become reactive rather than reflective, vulnerable to shallow ideas, manipulation, and poor leadership. True leaders must develop the habit of thinking, not just quickly, but well. The reading habit. Reading is a practice of discipline. For McChrystal, a lifelong commitment to books isn't academic. It's foundational to leadership. Books allow us to enter lives we haven't lived, wrestle with ideas we haven't considered, and grow from the experiences of others. Whether it's a biography of a statesman, a philosophical treatise, or even military history, reading becomes a form of sharpening the sword. Leaders must feed their minds if they expect to guide others. Self-discipline. At the core of all action is control over the self. McChrystal explores how discipline allows values to manifest in behavior. It's what ensures we act with consistency, integrity, and excellence. Without discipline, convictions are just aspirations. He emphasizes that self-discipline isn't about harshness, it's about reliability. Doing the right thing, even when no one is watching. He also acknowledges that this kind of discipline requires daily renewal and the humility to begin again after each failure. After the fall. What do you do after you fall? This chapter returns to his resignation, a deeply public and painful moment. Yet he shows how it became a moment of rebuilding, not revenge or denial. The true test of discipline is not how you act when things are going well, but how you respond when everything collapses. Picking yourself up, choosing humility over bitterness, and working toward redemption is a higher form of strength. Embrace the suck. Borrowed from the military, this phrase encapsulates a tough truth. Discomfort is part of growth. Whether it's physical pain, emotional strain, or professional hardship, discipline means embracing rather than avoiding these moments. McChrystal argues that pushing through hard times doesn't just make us stronger, it reveals who we really are. One meal a day. In a world of excess, McChrystal uses the example of his strict one-meal-a-day habit to illustrate how discipline over small, physical appetites can translate into mental clarity and personal control. He isn't promoting diet culture. He's demonstrating how mastering simple impulses builds character. Being obsessed, obsessive focus, when rooted in purpose, can be a superpower. McChrystal admits to being obsessed with improvement of self, team, and mission. This kind of intensity, when aligned with values, is the discipline of mastery. It isn't about burning out, it's about dialing in, channeling energy into something meaningful. Priorities. Discipline isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters most. McChrystal emphasizes the value of clear priorities. We often say yes to too much, dilute our efforts, and compromise what's truly important. Discipline is the ability to say no to distractions, to ego, to urgency, and say yes to what aligns with your deepest values. The Ranger Effect. In elite units like the Rangers, discipline is contagious. One person's commitment to excellence raises the bar for everyone. McChrystal describes how the standard is not just enforced by command, but upheld by culture. This applies beyond the military. In families, companies, and communities, discipline spreads when it's modeled and expected. Quitting. There's a right way and a wrong way to quit. McChrystal argues that walking away from something toxic or misaligned is sometimes necessary, but quitting because it's hard or uncomfortable is a failure of discipline. He urges us to be honest with ourselves. Are we leaving out of wisdom or avoidance? Choosing to lead. Leadership isn't a promotion, it's a choice. And that choice must be renewed daily through disciplined action. Leadership is about taking responsibility when it would be easier not to, and committing to serve rather than be served. McChrystal argues that leadership without discipline becomes self-serving. With discipline, it becomes transformational. In patient pursuit of greatness, the world pushes us to be fast, but greatness requires patience. McChrystal describes how long-term excellence is built not through bursts of inspiration, but through persistent, disciplined effort. Day after day, year after year, he invites us to think long, act consistently, and resist the lure of shortcuts. Just fix the bridge. Don't wait for permission. If something's broken, fix it. McChrystal recalls moments in war zones where initiative saved lives. But the lesson applies everywhere. Discipline means taking action without fanfare, solving problems instead of pointing fingers. Quiet responsibility is often the highest form of leadership. Handwritten notes. In a digital world, handwritten notes feel archaic, but they're powerful. McChrystal explains how small acts of personal attention, like writing a note, show discipline, effort, and sincerity. It's not the note, it's the care behind it that builds trust and loyalty, leading different generations. Discipline includes adaptability. McChrystal shares stories about bridging generational gaps in leadership. What worked with one team may not work with the next. The disciplined leader listens, learns, and evolves, while still holding firm to their values. He calls this adaptive discipline. Being there, showing up matters. Whether in times of tragedy or triumph, presence speaks louder than strategy. McChrystal emphasizes that being physically and emotionally present, especially during difficult times, is one of the most disciplined, generous acts of leadership. The dinosaur's tail. In leadership, the head often moves before the tail. McChrystal uses this metaphor to warn about being disconnected from reality. Discipline means staying in touch with your people, your ground truth, and your mission. Leaders must stay informed and humble. The question of character. Everything loops back to character. McChrystal ends part 2 by reminding us that conviction without discipline is hollow. It is only through disciplined, repeated action that our beliefs take form. Character is not a claim. It is a pattern, one that must be earned, reinforced, and protected every day. Part 3. Character. The challenge to become. Character isn't a box we check. It's an evolving pursuit. McChrystal reflects on how we're not born virtuous. We become so through the choices we make every day. The challenge lies not just in having values, but in consistently living up to them, especially under pressure. He invites readers to see character not as a trait, but a process, one that demands honesty, discipline, and courage. Living up to our values. Having values is easy. Living them is hard. McChrystal shares how the true test of integrity lies in aligning action with belief, particularly when the stakes are high or when compromise is easier. He admits that we all fall short, but the difference between intention and action defines our credibility. Character is built in those moments of difficult alignment. Tattoos, long hair, and fatherhood. Here, McChrystal muses on how appearances can be misleading. He reflects on his evolving relationship with his son, whose long hair and tattoos contrasted with military tradition. Initially judgmental, McChrystal learned to see past surfaces and connect with the deeper values beneath. Character, he concludes, is not how someone looks, it's how they live. On marriage, a lifelong partnership is one of the greatest tests of character. McChrystal shares his journey with his wife, Annie, through deployments, hardships, and change. Their enduring relationship was not based on perfection, but on forgiveness, patience, and shared values. Character in marriage means choosing to grow together, again and again. Knowing someone. You don't know someone by their resume. You know them by what they do under pressure, how they treat others when no one is watching, and how they respond to adversity. McChrystal emphasizes that real relationships require vulnerability and attention, because character is revealed in intimacy, not reputation. The I-495 rule. McChrystal shares a personal rule. If someone is broken down on the I-495 highway, he stops to help. Why? Because the small, inconvenient decisions define who we are. Character isn't abstract. It's built on habits. Our smallest actions often reveal our truest selves. Step away from the carousel. Modern life is a constant spin of productivity, ambition, and motion. McChrystal urges readers to step away and reflect. Character means resisting the pressure to constantly do more, and instead asking whether what we're doing aligns with who we want to be. Does character still matter? In a culture obsessed with metrics, status, and visibility, McChrystal boldly asks, does character still count? He argues that while it may not be trending, it remains the invisible force that holds families, teams, and societies together. Its value isn't in reward, but in meaning. Gone bad. He reflects on people with promise who lost their way. They weren't evil. They got comfortable with shortcuts, self-justification, or ambition unchecked. This is a warning. Character is never finished. It must be guarded continuously, or it decays slowly and silently. The Siren's call to rationalize. Rationalization is one of the greatest threats to character. McChrystal outlines how small compromises lead to larger betrayals of our values. Excuses, even if clever, eat away at the core of who we are. Character means recognizing when we're trying to convince ourselves of a lie, and having the strength to stop. Opportunity or opportunism. Not all ambition is good. McChrystal distinguishes between seizing the right opportunity and manipulating situations for personal gain. The difference is intent. Character means choosing the high road, even when the low one is faster. Say anything. Leaders who say whatever people want to hear might gain short-term support, but they destroy long-term trust. McChrystal warns against the erosion of truth. Character is shown by speaking honestly, especially when it costs you. The courage to do what's right. Courage isn't just found on battlefields. It's found in everyday choices, to call out injustice, to protect the vulnerable, to stand firm when you'd rather walk away. McChrystal honors the quiet heroes who choose integrity over comfort. Is silence consent? McChrystal confronts the moral ambiguity of staying silent in moments of wrongdoing. Sometimes, saying nothing is complicity. Character requires not just avoiding harm, but confronting it. To protect others, we must sometimes speak when it's risky. On patriotism, true patriotism is not blind loyalty. It's love for country rooted in truth, accountability, and a desire to make it better. McChrystal reflects on how character and citizenship means being both proud and critical, working to uphold the values we claim to represent. Heroes. Not all heroes wear uniforms. McChrystal celebrates those who live with quiet integrity. Nurses, parents, teachers, and neighbors who show up day after day. Character isn't fame. It's consistency, service, and heart. Who'll bell the cat? Drawing from the old fable, McChrystal talks about how everyone agrees something must be done, but no one volunteers. Courage is rare, but those who do step up, despite fear, define character for the rest of us. Whitewater rafting, an allegory for leading in uncertainty. McChrystal uses the metaphor of rapids to show that character is revealed when the current gets wild. It's not about controlling the chaos. It's about navigating it with composure, clarity, and trust in your team. Afghanistan. He looks back on the war, not with bitterness, but reflection. Decisions made in complexity, results that didn't match intentions, and lives forever changed. McChrystal shows how character includes owning outcomes, even when imperfect. Unreasonable bosses. We all face them. McChrystal discusses how you react when led poorly says more about you than them. He urges grace, clarity, and strength, not bitterness or passive aggression. Character is refusing to let toxicity redefine your standards. Aides and assistants. Behind every leader are those who make things happen. McChrystal pays tribute to the people in support roles, those without titles but with immense impact. He insists that character includes recognizing and honoring these unsung contributors. Anger and frustration. These emotions are human, but letting them control us is dangerous. McChrystal explores how disciplined expression, not suppression, is key. Character means pausing before reacting and channeling emotion into productive action. When there's no right answer. Sometimes, all choices are painful. McChrystal talks about moral ambiguity, the times when there's no clean option. Character, he argues, means making the least harmful choice with thoughtfulness and humility, and taking responsibility for it. The arc to relevance. As leaders age, they fade from the spotlight. McChrystal addresses this with brutal honesty. Letting go of power gracefully, mentoring others, and stepping aside with dignity are acts of character too. Aging, he says, can be noble if embraced with humility. Getting old. Aging brings loss, but also clarity. McChrystal reflects on how growing older helped him shed ego and focus on what matters most. Legacy. Connection. Truth. Character matures and deepens if we let it. Monuments. Statues can be torn down, but legacy is lived. McChrystal reminds us that the true monument we leave is in the lives we've touched. It's not what's carved in stone, but what's etched in memory. Saying goodbye. Farewells are part of life. McChrystal reflects on the many goodbyes he's said to soldiers, friends, and moments in life. Character is often revealed not just in how we begin, but in how we end. Thinking about the end. Finally, he returns to mortality. At the end of life, your titles fade. Your wealth means nothing. All that remains is your character. It is what defines you, what outlives you, and what speaks for you when you're gone. So what's the takeaway? You don't need to be a general to lead a life of honor. You just need conviction, discipline, and the will to live by both. General Stanley McChrystal's On Character reminds us, our choices shape who we become, and who we become is the only thing that truly matters. If you found this summary meaningful, consider subscribing. And ask yourself, who are you becoming? Thanks for watching.